Good morning, everybody. Then, first of all, I would like to remind everybody, if it's not the case yet, that you have few minutes to go to read the document we posted for consultation, because you are assumed to have read the documents before. The presentation we will present to you is just for, illustration, and of course we are only referring to the document itself. Then, coming to the strategy outlook paper, we didn't want to do a revolution. We wanted to revisit it, and we want to be very clear about the strategic pillars we had, declined in a number of strategic priorities, and also trying to identify, not all of them, but at least a large part of it, of all the challenges, and see how we could address them. Finally, we know and we heard quite often from the stakeholders that we have, of course, to focus also on quality, efficiency, effectiveness, and we have to keep it simple, that everybody will understand it. Let's have a look to the main pillars of the strategy. The document is articulated in 5 pieces, you saw that, and we try to present you in one single snapshot all the strategy story. You know the mission of BEREC, and we slightly revisit the strategic pillars by having them on the first one, promoting competition investment, which is of course including infrastructure. Secondly, promoting the internal market. And thirdly, empowering and protecting end users, which is also including business users. You know, we observed on the markets a lot of technology and market development, which is related to users, end users, all of them. It's not a full list of all what we saw, but we understand that they are key drivers. For example, of course, a lot of bundles are available on the market and is very significant. Secondly, convergence is not anymore a story. We see it everywhere. Thirdly, a lot of call regarding how we will understand, manage the OTT stories and the OTT services and players. We see also the need for more and more bandwidth for all services and the necessary investment in all networks. We see also the convergence between networks mobile and fixed, and the movement between offloads between them in one way or another. We see also the importance of end users, issues like data protection, privacy, network information, reliability in general. And last but not least, of course, how do we look to the market consolidations and impact on investments in general? Then that's on one side. On the other side, we know also that there are a lot of EU regulatory developments, which is of course impacting all the stakeholders. This is why in the document we already try to give some ideas, directions, reflection about a number of subjects we might address in the future. For example, the OTT, but also the consolidation, the impact of IP technology, and the convergence between mobile and fixed networks, the future of symmetric regulation, and of course, ex-ante assessment and review of radio spectrum. Then if we look to the strategic pillars 1, 2, 3, we decline that to make it clear about 3 priorities, which are of course reflected in the work program 2015 and will be reflected further in the work programs 2016 and 17. Regarding strategy priority number 1, promoting competition investment, the first of it will be promoting effective competition. Of course, we know it and we'll continue to focus on that. Secondly, fostering a positive, favorable climate for investment further. We know that we still need to have a major focus on that everywhere. And of course, supporting innovation in a broad sense by thinking also about new services, new business models, new type of architecture. In the second priority and pillars, in the priorities we have, promoting the internet market, we will continue to support convergence. We will continue to work on taking down the barriers. And with some reflection, which is, of course, thinking about how to interact also further than the BEREC directly related missions and topics, because we also understood that taking some decisions in some of regulatory decisions, it's also impacting other type of activities, and then we have to think further than just, you know, traditional environment. We have to collaborate transparently, effectively with other organizations like ENISA, like ERAS-DPG, like media regulators, and so on. But also looking to sensitive topics like net neutrality and how to work on that and agree about common approach. Then we come to the third strategy priority, which is empowering and protecting end users. As I said, we slightly adapted regarding the previous strategy paper. We extended not only to consumers, but all end users, including business. Then we'll continue to focus on promoting end user choice, accessibility, and affordability. Secondly, as we said before, we will, of course, taking down the barriers, but we will clearly focus also on how to safeguard an open internet, which is, of course, dealing with net neutrality issues, but also looking how to focus more on quality of services measurements and definitions, and, of course, the OTT subjects and internet applications as a whole. And last but not least, we'll continue to promote end-user protection online, directly and indirectly with all relevant parties. We can't do that if, of course, we don't have a serious focus, and I would like to take the benefits to say, again, thank you to the BEREC office and all our people there, because, of course, to work efficiently and effectively, we need to focus also on output and operational efficiency. This is why, to support the whole strategy, we will also focus on efficiency of activities through the BEREC office. This is why we will continue to ensure that BEREC output contribute directly to the strategy in work programs, in planning, but also to focus on 3 levels, which is improve the quality and consistency of individual NRA decisions through guidelines. Secondly, encouraging and engaging as far as we can and very effectively with all stakeholders that we do today and the Commission. And 3, by improving working methods and the quality of the outputs, which is, for example, Article 7 and 7a. Then if we do just a short summary in 1 page, and if you have to keep that in mind, we have summarized the strategy on this page. 3 pillars and priorities, cascading to the work program. Thank you very much. We will come back with a question about that.
So, good morning, everybody. Jack was so efficient that I couldn't coordinate with him, and this is really a very big room. I'd like to start by thanking all of you that decided to come today, because we really need your input and your comments and your collaboration in all this work that we have been doing. I'm now presenting the work program, and first of all I would like to tell you that this work program is part of this big work of planning the strategy for BEREC for the next 3 years, And this was a joint work, but that also benefit from the contribution of all stakeholders. Since the beginning, since the first outline draft, we have been working with everybody, with the NRAs, with the Commission, with all the associations that wanted to contribute in order to build a work program that reflects the needs of the sector, of the regulators, but also of all stakeholders. So I would like to show in this slide how the work program is a piece of this bigger picture that is the BEREC strategy, where we also have been doing the revision of the expert working groups structure, and of course in the middle of the year we'll have the opportunity for a midterm review. So we have, in line with the BEREC strategy, I'm telling you, this is for me a big confusion. I'm not used to have this and staying here without moving around. So I'm trying to keep myself here. But so the idea is that we have the BEREC strategy. We try to connect everything, especially in the next year. We have a big challenge. We have a new commission, and we still have the Connected Continent regulation that we don't really know what will go on. So we must be ready to work on different issues that might come out. At the same time, next year we will have the next framework review. And of course, this means that somehow we must shift BEREC's priorities, taking into account these two big issues. So we must do some priority assessment in light of the resources available during the course of the year, because we cannot do everything. But somehow we must keep flexibility and transparency. This means that we must adjust what we need to adjust, but we will do this with lots of transparency and communicating to everybody, to all the stakeholders, any changes that we will do in the work program. And something that is very important, we believe that in the BEREC office we have very good people, and BEREC office has a lot of potential to collaborate more in the work program. So we believe that we will have more support from the BEREC office to accomplish the work program next year. So you can see that the strategic priorities that are underlined in the work program follow the strategy that Jack just presented. So again, we have the promotion of competition and investment, promotion of internal market, and empowering and protecting end users. Of course, a transversal issue is the quality of BEREC output, and of course our operational efficiency. Starting with the strategic priority 1, you can see that we will continue the wholesale products is a main issue. So we will continue to report on the outcome of the first exercise that we have doing already, monitoring the implementation of the BEREC common positions, what we have been doing in 2014, and we want to repeat the exercise for 2015 and 2016. We will try to have a report to be adopted by Plenary 3. We also continue to monitor the best practices by NRAs in what concerns the virtual access products, and we want to start to developing BEREC's internal work on layer 2 and get a report out of it. And we want to have a report to be adopted by Plenary 3 as well. Important, we have the implementation of the recommendation on relevant markets and common position on geographical segmentation. We think that BEREC has a very important role to play here giving support to NRAs that need to implement a recommendation. So we want to share experiences, to share best practices, and mainly to give support to NRAs. And finally, we have the challenges and drivers of NGA's rollout and infrastructure competition. Again, how can we foster investment, keeping at the same time a healthy, competitive environment? So we try to study the broad regulatory approaches towards incentivizing NGA investments, and we would like to have a report to be adopted in plenary 2 of 2016, because this will be a quite long work, so this is something that will continue in 2016. So we'll have to prepare migration to all IP networks, and we'll try to conduct a comprehensive analysis of regulatory implications of this new IP ecosystem as a whole. And of course, we need to build on the work that we have already developed in terms of net neutrality, traffic management, transit peering agreement, and termination rates. Oligopoly analysis and regulation is something very important. We have been working on this. Our work will be finished during somewhere in 2015, and we want to use this work to provide input to the European Commission on the review of the market analysis guidelines, as well as the framework review. As Goran said, we are now facing a totally different sector. We are not just in the electronic communications world as we used to know it. And in order to do our market analysis, we must take into account all the players in the market. And as you know, we have now quite a new setting that we must take into account. At the same time, we understand that it's very important to take into account the mergers and acquisitions wave that we are assisting right now. And this implies that we should analyze the results, the impacts of these mergers, as well as regulatory remedies in the European Union. And we want to have a plenary workshop in the first plenary next year. And finally, we would like to have a report to be adopted by the end of 2015 on this oligopoly analysis and regulation. And finally, we want to work on the facilitation to access to radio spectrum. And in this area, we want to work closely with the Radio Spectrum Policy Group. We have been already starting to work together in 2014, and we want to do the same, to keep going in 2015, and we want to organize an internal workshop where both groups, BEREC and RSPG, will work together. In what concerns strategic priority 2, promoting the internal markets, of course, we will continue working on the Article 7.7a, and this has been very useful, and we will want to maintain the high quality of the works that have been done in BEREC. At the same time, we want to examine practical issues related to implementation of the recommendation on termination rates. For this, we want to have an internal report to be adopted by 2014 in the P4. We also want to look at the legislative evolution, and again, we must go through the subjects linked to the proposal on a connected continent regulation, and we want to be ready to work together with the Commission for the preparation of the next framework review. We think that we have a very important role to play in this issue, and we would like to have a first mover advantage. somehow we would like to have a leading role in this revision, because we are in the pole position to deal with these issues. In what concerns the international roaming, as you know, today we will focus on the international roaming. Again, we will do some work that is part of our obligations. In compliance to Article 19 of the roaming regulation, BEREC shall regularly collect data from NRAs on the development of retail and wholesale charges for voice, SMS, and data roaming services. So we will continue to do these benchmark reports. And we also have to, in accordance with this same Article 19, to collect information from NRAs on the transparency and comparability of different roaming tariffs offered by the operators. We'll have also a report on OTT services. As Jack said, OTT services are now part of our ecosystem, and we must take them into account. We want to conduct an analysis of OTT business models and their impact on the electronic communication sectors, both in terms of competition and consumer issues. And we want also to analyze the impact of these OTT services in terms of regulatory framework. They are now part of our ecosystem as NRAs. So we don't regulate OTT services, but they have an impact on our markets. We also need to do some studies and to assess how regulation needs to respond to the rollout of, machine-to-machine services and all this connected world that is now getting bigger and bigger. And we need to examine the regulatory requirements which might apply to these services. And also we must take into account all the implications that come with development of these machine-to-machine, mainly issues of privacy and data protection. We want also to develop the cross-border regulatory cooperation with the scope of the Universal Service Directive. So we'll continue to monitor the process of cross-border regulatory cooperation and in the cooperation with other relevant NRAs, especially for cases of fraud and misuse. And we try to learn from the experience of different countries dealing with these incidents. And for this, we will do some meetings and workshops as needed. And we plan to do an internal workshop. Finally, in the strategic priority 3, we have empowering and protecting end users. And of course, broadband quality of service and net neutrality is in the center of our concerns. We will conduct a feasibility study on quality monitoring in the context of net neutrality, and based on which BEREC will take a decision on the development of an opt-in monitoring system. And we count to have an internal report to be adopted by the end of 2015. We will continue the ecosystem dynamics and demand side forces in the net neutrality developments from an end-user perspective. So we have concluded a work that started in 2013 and has continued through 2014. And the report to be adopted in 2015 on this issue will set out BEREC's general approach and will support future analysis by NRAs on their national markets. Still, we want to continue to contribute to ongoing public debate on net neutrality issues. We want to have a report to be adopted by the end of 2015. Traffic management investigation, again, BEREC considers that there is substantial value in repeating the BEREC Commission joint investigation into traffic management practices employed by both fixed and mobile operators. And we want to carry out a new investigation, but this will depend on other factors, including with the developments with the proposed connected continent regulation. So we will wait to see how we shall organize this joint BEREC Commission investigation. The review of the scope of universal service, as you know, the Universal Service Directive calls for the European Commission to review the scope of universal service every 3 years because the world is changing. And even the notion of universal service is changing, and so we will part of this work. And we will also work on the initiatives to facilitate operators switching from non-residential customers, because we are aware of that the dynamics of these business markets are very different from the residential markets, and we want to organize workshops for NRAs to share their experiences in increasing the fluidity of non-residential markets, especially in what regards small and medium enterprises. And for this, we want to organize an internal workshop. And finally, as Jack said again, we want to work on everything we do should be 100% committed to quality. BEREC wants to be recognized by the excellence of his work. So we want to continue to do our benchmarks. Our benchmarks reports, we believe they are very important, and they have a very important contribution to the knowledge that all NRAs have about the market and about different domestic situations. So we will continue to produce benchmark reports on mobile and fixed termination rates, as well as on SMS. We want to provide reports compiling data on OTTs and bundles, as well as prices analysis. We believe that we need to work on new indicators, because since the sector is changing, the market is changing, the products are changing, we also need to adapt the indicators to these new changes. And we want to also look at the regulatory accounting in practice. We have been doing this. We will repeat this annual exercise in 2015 in order to assess the degree to which there is consistency in regulatory accounting across the European Union. And we also want to identify differences among member states in what concerns the regulatory accounting approach. And we want to have a report to be adopted by P3, so plenary 3. The Stakeholder Forum, we believe that discussing our activities with all stakeholders in the market, it's very important. We learn from you. We are working for the sector, so it's very important that you also have a voice in our discussions. And the way we found out to have more communication with you is through the Stakeholders Forum. So we want to have a very transparent way of working, and we hope that you continue to collaborate with us attending this Stakeholders Forum. And of course, we'll have our BEREC annual reports on activities and also on developments in the sector. And we will continue to work with European institutions, cooperating and collaborating in everything we need that we can be useful. We are trying to decide on implementing an information sharing portal where everybody can have access to documents that we want to share, publications from different countries, studies, reports, and data produced by each NRA. And of course, this will be a common platform, a website where everybody can have access to this information. And this was also an European Commission request. And finally, international cooperation. We believe that we are not isolated in the world. The European Union has a lot to learn and to teach from other regions in the world. So we want to keep our collaboration with other associations of regulators like EMERG and Regulatel, or with other big regulators like FCC in the United States, and we want to have here a platform of cooperation and collaboration where everybody can learn from each other. So you can see that we plan to have a total of 33 deliverables during the next year. Some of them are works that we will start in 2015. Some are will be leftovers that will finish only in 2016. But what is important is that each point of our work program is associated with a deliverable. It can be a report, or it can be an internal workshop, a plenary workshop, or whatever, internal report, I said already. So we are under public consultation. It's running till the 24th of October, and this is a place where we want to discuss the work program with you, and we plan to have a final approval by the next plenary in December. What is important, we can receive written comments from each of you in order to integrate them incorporate them in our work program. We are open to discussion, and we are especially open to all your contributions. Thank you so much.